Welcome back to another fighting style video. Today's fighters will be a blast from a past versus a present from the present. I hope you all enjoy. Before we get started, let's ask the same 3 questions as I did in my last fighting video. They should definitely go check out, by the way. Who and what are our competitors? Where will they be fighting? And in what way am I going to be setting up the fighting arena, I suppose you could say, or the fighting style of the video? Well, we're about to hop right into it. And first I'll start off with the Dilophosaurus. The Dilophosaurus is a medium to small sized dinosaur, but that's definitely not saying that it's small, it's just small compared to others, which really makes you think about the past. But the Dilophosaurus, when I said it was a blast from the past at the beginning of the video, I really did mean it. This thing is a monster. It was the size of a grizzly bear, which is why I made this whole video, because it was an interesting concept. This dinosaur was probably the main predator of its time, outdoing any other type of dinosaurs. Probably not outdoing the Prostosuchians at the time, but it was up there with them at the time. I keep on saying at the time, I'm sorry for that. This would have been a average dinosaur, just with a very large crest, and it's often undersized in most movies and also has a thrill and can shoot poison. In reality, it could not do that, sadly, but it still is a huge theropod-sized dinosaur and could do a lot of damage with its claws and teeth, and is going to be a lot of fun to watch or hear me say how well he'll do. Its opponent is none other than the grizzly bear. And the grizzly bear, believe it or not, is the size of the Dilophosaurus. Get it? Because I said that earlier. Never mind. The grizzly bear is an omnivorous beast, I suppose you could say, and is also the main dominant animal of its environment. It has a lot of fur, stopping it from getting too much damage, I suppose you could say, or hurt from other animals when bitten, and it's also got a lot of fat. That's mainly actually just for the winter, but it also protects it from other animals attacking it as well. This is often used as a plushie, literally having a teddy named after it, being the teddy bear. So famous this animal is. But it has all right to be famous. So it might be lazy at times, but it certainly knows its way around an arena. And it's going to be exciting to see to go up against the Dilophosaurus. So, where will they be fighting? Well, we know that the Dilophosaurus used to live in a very warm environment, one that may have been just a little too warm for the grizzly bear. But in the modern day America, with the proper temperature, it could be suited for the Dilophosaurus. Maybe the actual environment wouldn't be, but it'd be good enough for just one fight against some random grizzly bear. Oh well, in this case it would be the biggest grizzly bear possible and the biggest Dilophosaurus possible, as I'm putting them at their max estimate weights. And I know I didn't do this in my last fighting video, but that's because they both were hybrids, and we don't actually know what the weights are of the hybrids, because the creators themselves never said so. So we kind of just had to run off different search engines and different things like that to find out the average of the weight so we'd get a fair fight. But because these two animals are actually real, or well, were real at one point, we can actually use their max estimate weights, as it would still be fair. But what about the fighting layout? Well, in order of all the stats we'll be using speed, strength, agility, flexibility, overall senses, overall combat, IQ, battle experience, weight, size, intimidation, balance, coordination, stamina, adaptation, durability, endurance, healing, abilities, and then we also have weaknesses and fear. If you end up winning weaknesses and fear, that's 2 minus points, or well, 1 minus point for each. But all the rest, from IQ to endurance, are all plus points. Whoever has the most points wins. But before I share who wins, I'll be saying what would happen in the fight, and I'll be doing an actual fight between the two. And then I'll be saying by how much they won. And what do I mean by this? Well, what I mean is by how much difficulty did they win by. So in order, we have no difficulty, which means they did nothing. Anything difficulty, which means they barely did any damage and barely lasted any time at all. Slow difficulty means they lasted quite a while and barely did any damage. Low difficulty means the same but a bit better. Bad difficulty means they did quite a little bit of damage and they earned their battle, but they still didn't do much. Mid difficulty, as you all know, just means if there were two of them, it would be more fair if there was one, but they still did pretty well. Big difficulty means that he took a little bit to, get down, but eventually he did end up dying or losing in the fight. High difficulty means the same as big, but higher, and so does extreme. Draw difficulty means they both end up drawing, but they walk away. And blood for blood difficulty means the exact same, but they both die. One may have a slight edge over the other, but they end up dying. So there could still be a winner, but they both end up dying no matter what. Really quick, can I just say to please like and subscribe and to comment, as any comment will be put into consideration and will probably be a future video. And remember to share. And thank you for all who have subscribed to me. I very appreciate it. And on with the video, I suppose. So firstly, we'll start with speed. And you'd think it'd be close, but it's actually not that close at all. As the Dilophosaurus at its time was one of the fastest carnivores there, and was built for speed for its time, reaching up to 35 kilometers per hour, which is insanely fast for any dinosaur. But compared to the grizzly bear, it's not close. The grizzly bear gets up to max estimate in terms of speed, may I add, we're using max estimates only, 56 kilometers per hour, which is almost twice the speed of the Dilophosaurus. And the explanation to this is that mammals were built to be agile and built to be able to outpace carnivores at the time. And we have a special build that not any other animals have ever exhibited, apart from amphibians, of course. So, grizzly bear takes speed. And as you can imagine, strength wasn't that close either. While it was closer than if it was a Dilophosaurus from Jurassic Park, it's still not that close at all. Since the Dilophosaurus, as mentioned, was built for speed and agility for its environment at the time, it wasn't exactly built for strength, which is going to be one of its downfalls in this battle, especially since it doesn't even have the advantage in speed. In terms of strength, it could probably, near the max amount of weight it could push, would be around 270 kg, which isn't that bad. 270 kilograms isn't bad at all. Definitely compared to a human, that's 3 times the amount the average-ish human can push. But compared to the grizzly bear, it's nothing, as the grizzly bear could push weights up to 680 kilograms. That's almost twice, if not twice as much as the Dilophosaurus, which is huge. In fact, it's about 2.5 times the amount of the Dilophosaurus. So if it really came down to it, a bear could probably push 2 Dilophosauruses and a juvenile that's mid-aged away from itself if needed, but that would be its max. Mind you, this is a huge, colossal grizzly bear, and that's perfect in every way possible, and same goes for the Dilophosaurus. Now, next up is agility, and it's actually closer than you think, and probably will go to the different one than you think. And the Dilophosaurus was built for agility as a dinosaur for its environment. And the grizzly bear is just naturally agile, but isn't built to be agile. And you'd be surprised when I say this, but I'm going to have to give the agility to the Dilophosaurus. Just because it's small and nimble, it can use its agility to actual advantage. Or the polar bear's only feat of agility that's going to help it is its legs being able to turn a little bit when it's on 2 legs, and the fact that its paws can go on all 5s or all 4s or whatever, like paws, and then can also rear up to go inwards and be able to slash. But the Dilophosaurus could do the slashing bit and probably would be able to turn better and use its agility to its advantage. So I'm just going to have to give agility to the Dilophosaurus. Next up is flexibility, and as the bear is a mammal, so it's built for this, the Dilophosaurus still takes it. Yet again, it's more nimble and can use it to advantage, so Dilophosaurus takes it. Next up is overall senses, and whilst this is also close, basically being identical, there's evidence in the skull of the Dilophosaurus that it probably had a better what would you call it, nasal cavity, so it could smell a lot better, probably detecting the grizzly bear before the grizzly bear even noticed the Dilophosaurus. So the Dilophosaurus takes overall senses. Now, overall combat would be a bit of a tricky one since the bear does run into other bears quite frequently. But the Dilophosaurus, since it was a carnivore, it was likely a scavenger as well, but they probably had to compete for its food. And since we don't know how well it did, and we know it would have only eaten meat, and because the bear's omnivorous, I'm just going to give the Dilophosaurus the benefit of the doubt here. Next up is IQ, and it's actually pretty close, but the grizzly bear still takes it. Mammals are known for having high IQ, and Dilophosaurus was just your average dinosaur that was smart for its own environment, but not too smart overall. Grizzly bear takes this one. Next up is battle IQ, and you might be surprised that we're just barely leaning towards the Dilophosaurus, just because the fact that it was a scavenger and big carcasses and any carcasses at all were pretty scarce, it would be forced to fight other animals, whilst the grizzly bear has its berries and fish, it has a bit of everything, whilst back then life wasn't as diverse as it is now. So the Dilophosaurus just naturally, only barely, but does naturally take this one. Next up is battle experience, and as mentioned, the Dilophosaurus would naturally just run into more battles than the grizzly bear. So this one's also as close as battle IQ, since the grizzly bear has more IQ, but it's just gonna barely have to go on to the Dilophosaurus. Next up is experience overall, and we're just gonna go off of age for this one. And grizzly bears typically live between 20 to 25 or 30, but the oldest recorded grizzly bear has lived up to 39. And as far as we're concerned, Dilophosaurus at the oldest could get up to 30. Based on other theropods, that is. So until more studies come out on Dilophosaurus' age, we're just going to have to go with the grizzly bear on the experience on this one. Next up is weight, and you'd be surprised to hear that this is actually so close and is unbelievably going to the Dilophosaurus. Whilst the grizzly bear does have a lot more strength, surprisingly Dilophosaurus was more heavyweight. But both weigh 1.1 tons. But some unreliable sources, I must add, say that the Dilophosaurus weighs 1.2 tons at largest. And some measurements from reliable sources say that the Dilophosaurus could measure upwards towards 1.2 tons, but not 1.2 tons. So they both weigh 1.1 tons, but the Dilophosaurus is just slightly heavier. Now, next up is size. And size isn't that close, since basically all I do, which is not really that fair, but this is what I do, I just gather what they have overall and see which number is the largest. So the bear, for example, had 2 meters in length, 2 meters in height, and something like 1.2 meters in width, which I actually think that's the exact measurement, and it ended up having 7.2 or something like that, whilst I know the Dilophosaurus ended up having 10 meters overall just due to his tail and having really long length, which I know isn't that fair, but if you overall put all the sizes together, the Dilophosaurus does have a bigger number, so I'm just going to have to give Dilophosaurus the overall size. Next up is balance, and since the balance of the bear is good because it's on all fours, balance goes to the grizzly bear. Because the coordination of a grizzly bear is really good due to it having good coordination, it's just that simple, as good coordination skills, coordination goes to the bear. In terms of stamina, bears can last really long times and fights, so bears just take stamina. In terms of adaptability, bears can go in the water and swim, they can climb trees if really needed to, and run around forests, whilst Dilophosaurus can only do one of those things, even if running in a forest out of all things. So grizzly bear pretty easily takes that. Next up would be durability, and due to the fat and blubber hair of the grizzly bear, almost said polar bear again, the grizzly bear takes that, as well as endurance and healing, since bears have seen very good healers overall for their body, even being almost worshipped by Indian Americans for having good healing, and as well as endurance, since they can take a lot of hits that Dilophosaurus probably couldn't. And in terms of abilities, he is just got better abilities overall than the Dilophosaurus. That's including climbing and swimming, And Dilophosaurus might have his tail, but it's not really going to help him out here. In fact, it's just giving him more of a weakness, somewhere to grab onto, and extra appendages for the bear to use or grab with, which is why Dilophosaurus is taking weaknesses and fear as well, as grizzly bears don't show much in terms of fear, and as Dilophosauruses were more scavengers, they probably were a bit afraid of a big, hefty competitor that's ready to fight. But before we continue, may I add that if this video in particular doesn't do well, fighting videos might come to a stop, but that's not anything bad, because I'm actually wanting to do more inverse swapping, and my next video, as my last time I'll be spoiling another video, will be very interesting. What video may that be exactly? Well, you've heard of the D-Rex, obviously, from the new Jurassic World movie. What if I put that into another island? You might be asking, what island? Another Jurassic island? No, something maybe even worse. Let's just say there's a big angry ape and a couple relatives, I suppose you could say, that are waiting for him. No more spoilers, but I hope you enjoy waiting for the next video. Really quickly, may I please mention to remember to like and subscribe and to share, and any comments put down below in the video will be put into consideration for a future video. Now, on with the video. I'll start off with the Dilophosaurus. The Dilophosaurus wanders around the forest. After being teleported here 2 days ago after a hefty meal, it hasn't had a little meal for a while. It's not hungry, but it could do with the excess food. And it's been travelling around. But it doesn't know it's in the middle of a forest in modern day America. And when I say middle, I mean the middle, the deepest forest in America. And it doesn't know in this forest lies the biggest bear in America, the grizzly bear. And not only is it the biggest species of bear, it's also the biggest specimen, the big grizzly bear, the biggest grizzly bear known, only being matched by that of a grizzly bear found in the 1800s. But it doesn't care as it wanders around, not really noticing anything until it smells it. Something big. But it thinks it might be a carcass due to the smell that the bear gives off. So it goes towards it, and it sees it there on the ground, lying, and it doesn't know it's alive. So as the Dilophosaurus, creeps up on the bear, it's in for a shock. The bear noticed the Dilophosaurus and wakes up immediately, ready to fight, and both of them are now staring at each other. They both do circles around each other, the bear going on the higher bit of the cliff, while the Dilophosaurus is near the bottom, and the Dilophosaurus is a hideous hiss or roar towards the bear, and just then the bear charges. Outpacing anything the Dilophosaurus has in its environment, the Dilophosaurus doesn't know how to react, but luckily uses its agility and flexibility to move out the way of the bear. The bear goes in and stands on its 2 feet to swipe at the Dilophosaurus, but the Dilophosaurus runs around him and bites him straight on the rib. The bear reacts with a painful roar, but bites him back, harder, near the back of the neck, but closer towards the back. And the Dilophosaurus hits in pain. It starts wriggling its body around trying to escape, but the bear won't allow it. Right there and then the bear goes on its 2 back legs and goes on top of the Dilophosaurus, pinning the Dilophosaurus to the ground. The bear starts either slashing or slicing the Dilophosaurus into pieces. The Dilophosaurus starts squealing but can't do much against this bear. But luckily to the Dilophosaurus, it's a little heavier, and due to this, it's able to push the bear away. The bear is stunned that it was able to do this because it's the largest creature in its environment and doesn't expect it. But he continues to attack once pushed away, but the Dilophosaurus runs away. The bear isn't letting the Dilophosaurus go and runs back after him. After the while, the Dilophosaurus is again caught up from the back by the grizzly bear and has no choice but to fight back. The Dilophosaurus, in a sudden turn with flexibility, is able to bite the grizzly bear on the neck. The grizzly bear goes up high onto its back 2 legs, hurting the back of the Dilophosaurus a little bit, but due to the Dilophosaurus's weight, it's able to bring it down. They land on the grizzly bear and they roll around for a bit. The Dilophosaurus getting squished by the grizzly bear, and the grizzly bear being able to handle the weight of the Dilophosaurus. It's back and forth until the Dilophosaurus has a nasty bite to the neck to the grizzly bear. The grizzly bear screams in pain underneath the Dilophosaurus, but the Dilophosaurus doesn't let go and grips tighter with every punch or swipe from the paw. And just as the grizzly bear thinks he's going to die, he gets one lucky swipe to the head. The Dilophosaurus is forced to let go, and before the Dilophosaurus knows it, it's rushed to the ground and bitten straight on its skull. The Dilophosaurus squeals and tries to run away, but before he knows it, his skull is cracked, smashed under the pressure of the grizzly bear's jaw, and is gone. There lays the Dilophosaurus with its skull cracked in, looking as if it's been hit by a rock and is half indented. Grizzly bear wins. So why did the grizzly bear win? Well, it's mainly just because of its durability and endurance and need to fight on. Once the grizzly bear saw the Dilophosaurus going towards it, it thought that it was going to be a worthy opponent, I suppose you could say, or a threat, so he thought he needed to get rid of it. And since grizzly bears almost get into a panic state and just continue fighting until it's fast enough to run away or just dies, that's what the grizzly bear did. And since the Dilophosaurus is too slow, it was either a fight to the death or the Dilophosaurus would have to climb, as grizzly bears aren't the best climbers, but they can climb, and the grizzly bears are really good swimmers. But obviously the Dilophosaurus couldn't climb, so it was left there to fight. And because the Dilophosaurus being heavier, he was able to win back advantage midway through the fight, but near the end the grizzly bear is able to take it due to the fact of its strong canine jaws. It was able to more like crush the skull of the Dilophosaurus, although the Dilophosaurus did do pretty well. And to be honest, after looking over what happened, I'm giving it a high to extreme difficulty towards the grizzly bear, just because the fact that the Dilophosaurus is pretty delicate and is nowhere near as strong or fast, and also probably doesn't have as much experience as the bear. So it could go either way, but it ends up going to the bear, to be honest. It could become an extreme difficulty if the Dilophosaurus were to know how to fight back. But in this case, due to the Dilophosaurus and getting some lucky hits and bites, it was an extreme difficulty. But the grizzly bear takes it every time, in my opinion. Only not taking it if it hadn't noticed that the Dilophosaurus was coming towards it. But luckily it had. So, how many things did the grizzly bear have over the Dilophosaurus? Well, the grizzly bear had 13 things over the Dilophosaurus, this being speed, strength, IQ, experience, intimidation, balance, coordination, stamina, adaptability, durability, endurance, healing, and abilities. And with all of these are pretty key features, but Dilophosaurus had its own as well, having up to 8, that being agility, flexibility, overall senses, overall combat, battle IQ, battle experience, weight, and size. But because it also had more weaknesses and was more afraid and had fear, it takes its overall score from 8 down to 6, thus leaving the bear with a big to an extreme win against an opponent that was equal in its own right, but clearly not equal enough. Maybe next time I'll do some bigger bear versus a bigger version of Dilophosaurus. But yet again, if this fighting video doesn't go well, I probably won't do a fighting video in a while. But I hope you all enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Or well, tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.